So what you did today.
All right, so it is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, and 6 p.m. We're going to go ahead and start this Lake Stevens regular city council. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just to make sure everyone knows, this is a hybrid meeting, so we are holding it in person as well as via Zoom, and the Zoom portion of it is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube later. So with that, City Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Daughtry.
Here.
Councilmember Patchett.
Present.
Councilmember Dorstad.
Present.
Councilmember Petershire.
Present.
Councilmember Ewing.
Here.
Councilmember Frederick.
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Present.
Excellent, thank you very much. And with that, can I get approval of the agenda, Council President?
All right, does anybody have any additions, deletions, movement, anything on the agenda?
I move to accept the agenda submitted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any conversation around the motion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstained? No? Passed unanimously.
Excellent, thank you, President. So with that, let's move to citizens' comments. How we do citizens' comments is we open up the floor for a citizen for 3 minutes to address the city council on any topic they wish. We ask that they post or say their name and their address. And we will start with the in-person. I have two folks. I have one person and a couple. Are we doing it as a couple or?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. I'm okay with that. And then we'll look at, see who's online to see if there's any citizens' comments there. So with that, let's start with Jerry Summerall from Senior Center.
Haven't done this for a while since pandemic, but I'd like to give you a little report of what we've been doing. Just the rest of things that are happening with it.
Jerry, can I get you to talk maybe just a little
Oh,
closer to the
first,
microphone? Thank you.
2514 85th Drive Northeast, Lake Stevens. I hope some of you knew that the 30th of last month, we had a COVID-19 inoculation clinic at the senior center. All were invited. It started out just being the senior citizens, and those with underlying. But we opened it to everybody, and we had 63 people show. 3 of those were firefighters. One of them was first inoculation, which we thought was great. We are going to have Christmas dinner this year. It's been 2 years now, but we're opening it up. And that'll be Christmas Day. So right now, we're finally back up into the 200s with our membership. We're at 265 now. We dropped way below 100 there at the beginning, and we were at peak at 4. We've lost several to our neighbor Snohomish because we had shuttered. We opened. Two people actually had COVID, so we had to shutter again. So they all migrated over there, and they're just slowly coming back again. We served 167 meals last month, which is way below what we used to do. They're just being Snohomishes that come in, sit down, and we were still drive up only. We decided seniors need to talk. Most everybody does. see each other, converse. So eventually they will come back. They're trickling back now, but we hope to back up again. Our volunteer hours for last month were 354, which is quite a bit less than we normally do. But during this pandemic, it's about what good. Any questions for me? Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Jim.
Thank you.
And looks like I have Team VOA, Lindsay and Tina.
I just have a question. I didn't realize I was supposed to fill out a form.
Okay, do we want to get a report real quick? Yatter? Lindsay and Tina.
I'm smiling. Okay.
As you always are.
Thank you. I mean, yes.
Go ahead, you have the floor.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Gailey. Thank you so much for this opportunity to come before you tonight. What we wanted to chat with you about is to just let you know about our Lake Stevens Community Resource Center, which opened up this year in January of this year, January 18th to be exact. We're inside the Lake Church on Vernon Road. And really, what is a CRC? A Community Resource Center does really, in the simplest form, is a one-stop shop for folks that are in need, struggling to make ends meet, and or might be living paycheck to paycheck and want to stay stably in their houses. We serve a wide range of different folks, from families with children to elderly folks that might be on a fixed income, to just single individuals that just need an extra hand up. This year alone, since we've opened, we've served just under 1,000 households, over 2,400 different individuals, and have invested almost 44,000 in direct assistance right back into the city of Lake Stevens, not counting the over $1 million in federal emergency rental assistance relief that we've distributed as well to residents. So I really wanted to introduce Tina Mandela, our site director, that has been leading the most amazing effort towards making this the best one-stop shop for folks that are living in Lake Stevens. So with that, I'll hand it over to Tina.
Hello, council members, Mayor Haley. I've decided to put pen to paper for this because that's the easiest way for me to express myself. So I hope that's okay today. Okay. Good evening, council members. I'm Tina Mandela, and I'm the site director of our Lake Stevens Community Resource Center. And I would like to start off by saying thank you for your service to our community and for allowing me to share this evening with all of you. Now I'll quote a piece from the Lake Stevens City page. Through shared active participation among residents, the mayor, city council, and city staff, we commit ourselves to quality living for this and future generations. This is your city and your voice matters. I am here this evening using my voice and representing the voices of our neighbors whose stories I have committed to sharing with the Lake Stevens Council and our mayor month after month. Community resource centers through time have helped families regarding housing, food security, applying for benefits, obtaining employment, after-school programs and holiday programming, and much more. Providing tools not only for the parent through their journey towards stability, but bringing a much needed sense of home and family to the children they care for. When the community rallies together and supports each other, that's when the magic happens. I stand here today in hopes you can see how community support has changed the trajectory of one's life, my life. I am a product of community. I'm a product of the underserved, and I'm a product of a village, as it takes us all. I'm a product of someone who cared. With the guidance and help of our local community resource center and a food bank, my mother, who worked very hard, mind you, was able to provide us a home where we felt safe, cupboards that had food, and free after-school programs that allowed us to be kids. Without these resources, who's to say what may have happened? I'm grateful for these times as it has led me to service. And this is what I love. It is what gives me purpose. You see, someone cared, and that is what changes future generations. So thank you for this time. And any of you are more than welcome to stop by at our center and see what we do in action. Thank you.
Great, Tina, thank you. And I applaud Tina and the work she does down there. If you haven't gone to visit her, see what she does, I would highly recommend it. And if you need a shot of energy, just go see Tina as well. She's perfect for it.
Well, I, for one, am glad that you're here. I served on the Lake Stevens Community Center board for 8 years. And when we lost that community center, it was a blow to the city. And to get the BOA back here and get that open for us is a blessing. And so you have all my support that I can give you. With the food bank building, we're finally going to get started, and we're going to have a permanent place for you.
Yep, absolutely. Great, perfect. All right, Lance Kosher.
Hi, I want to take a look at the budget priorities, and I really compliment the council on being concise on those. And I'm especially excited about the surface stormwater piece and the enhanced park and education funding piece. And those two actually go with something else I'm very, very much in favor of. I was born in 1940, right over here in the Butler House that was torn down. And there were 1.7 million people in Washington State at that time, and there are almost 8 million now. So there's been an eightfold almost. And Lake Stevens, of course, being the lovely place it is with the lake and with the hills and with the great school district, has really blossomed, actually increased in population way more than that. So everybody's against all the development, but we've got to have the development. And I understand that these houses have to be packed together, otherwise they're not affordable, and we're running out of land. And already our wetlands are ruined because we have no watershed above with the trees anymore, and we can't help that. But I've lived in swamps my whole life and live over here on 20th, right across, so the sidewalk's flooded. So I'm really excited to see that we're going to continue to work on the those problems with the flooding and the cleaning the lake. But the developments, so what I really would like the council to look at is looking at additional green space for these packed in developments. The green space shouldn't be someplace like wetlands where kids can't be there. The World Health Organization recommends a minimum of 9 square meters per person when you figure all of your parks and all of your green spaces. So I implore, I'm not against the buildings, the houses. That's what has to happen. If you walk up 20th right now, 26th up to the high school, you see those lovely old homes with all the green space around and a lot of trees. We can't have that anymore. We can't afford that. But I think we just have to, on these developments, have a bigger green space, almost a mini park that really that goes along with all our lovely parks, like the park that is here. So that's my big idea for us to work on the next 10 years or whatever. And my little idea is, please let us have our museum as soon as we can, as soon as you can get funding. I just started volunteering. I've only volunteered for a year. And the people that come in, they're so excited about what we have, and we're trying to show people even in the stacked up place we've got. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Challenge, do we have anybody online?
We do. Sue Fernald, she's coming into the meeting.
Okay. Anyone other than that person?
No.
I can't tell, Susan.
Yeah.
Just do this. Sue, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I didn't raise my hand.
Okay,
Oh.
your hand's up, but I will go ahead and lower it. No worries. There is nobody else at this time, Mayor.
Okay. All right, I appreciate the comments, good stuff. And let's move on to council business, council president.
All right, well, let's start in the middle and go with Councilmember Ewing.
First, thank you, Tina, for your comments or heartfelt comments. I love your concise reports that you send out each month. That's a real big help. And it's easy for someone, a simple mind like me, to process and to share with others. So thank you for that. Attended the planning commission meeting last week. Also attended, well, not an official city event, Empty Bowls for the food bank. Last Saturday, they raised a significant amount of money, about $35,000 instead of dollar value. And I just want to recognize an email from the food bank, the in-kind donations that are worth a very significant sum of money that sometimes are overlooked. So I just like to read the names for the record so people can understand that it's not just people going to on these other fundraisers, but there's significant community support. Red Tail Construction, the City of Lake Stevens, Golseta Paving, MN Neal and Associates, LDC Engineers, Pacific Coast Surveys, Terra Associates, Origins Landscaping, Gibson Traffic, Lampro Group, Cornerstone Contractors, and the Gordon Company. And I know there's others, but those are the ones that I have on this outdated email from the food bank. Also wanted to, I did see Blanche, I saw you at the museum last week, came and visited with my family. Thank you for graciously hosting us, and outstanding. And I also look forward to having that museum in a more appropriate setting. And lastly, I just want to thank Public Works. I noticed late into the evening, past work hours, cleaning out storm drains with leaves. And so in light of their service, notice there are other community members that are out doing a similar thing, chipping in where Public Works also is helping out. So thank you to your staff for going above and beyond to keep the flooding at a limited amount with all the rain. That's it for me.
All right, Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you. Also attended planning last week, and also on Saturday attended the Empty Bowls. It was nice to see community. There was numerous people there, and I think the general comment was we needed to build the mill a little bit.
Recording in progress.
What improvements they're hopefully obligated to do, and what improvements maybe we're going to step up and do, because that will be the focal point of Lake Stevens. And personally, I'd like to see it look attractive. So hopefully we can get that discussion going with WashDOT.
So Mayor, our audio cut out for about 30 seconds of what Gary was saying. I don't know if you just want to repeat your topics real quick.
Sure.
I apologize. Anybody on Zoom did not hear you.
I guess my main comment was WashDOT's obligation at the 204 and 9, the roundabout improvements that are coming forth. What kind of obligation is there for landscaping and or beautification for that project? If they have any obligation at all. And if so, if we could potentially enhance or what the city of Lake Stevens is thinking about doing.
I think Gene's got some answers for you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilmember. We will bring back some detailed information for the council to understand what's going on out there, but we have been working for a long time with WashDOT on beautification out there. And there will be a welcome to Lake Stevens sign out in the main hub, I believe, of 204 and 9 in the main roundabout there, but there's landscape going everywhere. So
Okay.
I know planning has been working with them on colors and different things as well. So we will get that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dickinson.
Right. Well, thank you to Jerry Stumbaugh for coming tonight. He just saved me having to say a lot of stuff. Thank you. Thanks to Aaron Halverson and Phil Stevens for letting the Historic Society into the Grimm House to assess next steps and how it can be protected from the elements this winter. It just was really great. They've been very concerned about not being able to get in there. And I understand that the president of the Historic Society clambered up a ladder to get in there. So that's pretty good for her. And it was great to see Councilmember Daughtry. I guess I missed some of you other guys at the Empty Bowls and also at Sherwood Community Services. It was great to see him there and to get some of his wife's cookies from Empty Bowls. I hope you guys took care of that. I had fun, so much fun last night speaking with PAC 36 at the upper room up there off of 9. Apparently, the word is out that Mary Dickinson talked to scouts, and it was so fun. And they had some excellent questions for this elected official. This is my 4th troop this fall, so watch out. And I want you to know, for as far as the Community Resource Center, the Friends of the Library have decided they will be in alliance with this group. We have a fundraiser right now where we're collecting gently used children's books. And between myself and Dana Bittinger, who's another powerhouse, watch out, we are going to donate 100 gently used children's books to the CRC. And the money that we pay for that will go directly to the library. So it is a win-win. So I'm very excited about that. Onward. I'm done.
Councilmember Frederick.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Taggart.
Let's talk about parks. They submitted a comprehensive plan to planning, and I believe they're expected to pass this on to the council. Attended the Empty Bowls event. That was really a great event. And other than the cookies, his wife's caramels are good. It was a donation and I had to get about 5 or 6 of those. I heard a different number. I heard it was around 4,600 is what I had heard they raised. Yeah, 4,600.
That was raised.
Yeah, at the Hungry Bowls thing.
No.
So it was just up from that number. I don't know if maybe a number I heard yesterday because I was talking tickets with him and stuff. So they did great. It was a great event for that. Let's see, I was at a Rotary meeting last week and the Historical Society came and it was a really great presentation for Rotary. And it turns out, which I didn't know this, but there was about 10 or 11 resorts on the lake at one time, and Lake Stevens was a real dance mecca. This is where everyone used to come to go dancing, and there was all kinds of dangerous platforms to jump off into the lake at, which would never go along today. 2 other things. One, tomorrow is the Marine Corps' birthday. If you know any Marines out there, make sure you tell them happy birthday. And then on the 11th is Veterans Day. If you know a veteran, make sure you get out and tell them happy Veterans Day. Thank you for their service.
Thank you. Councilmember Georgetown.
Thank you, President Daughtry. I want to take an opportunity to commend our city staff for applying for and receiving the Housing Action Plan grant.
I'm super excited that the city of Lake Stevens is going to have funding to help us assess our current housing, what we have, I guess, our current housing capability and what we need within our city to be able to provide the full continuum of housing to folks that want to live here, to our families and our seniors and everyone in between. So that's a great accomplishment. It gives us $100,000 to embark on a process to do a really thorough assessment of what we have and what we need. So just really want to thank the city staff for doing the work to capture those funds. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And I did attend, actually I volunteered at Empty Bowls. My wife and I both every year volunteer there. It was a great event. It's a little bit loud in there with the music and things. It kind of reverberates almost like in here, but actually reverse. But it was a great event. This place was packed. There was people everywhere. And this room was full of empty bowls and all those bowls disappeared. So somebody took almost all of them, they're gone. It was a great event. Glad to see that kind of stuff happening. I'm also glad to see the mill is being used quite extensively. I mean, we got done with empty bowls and the very next day there was another event in here. So it's kind of nice to, we've got this great facility and it's being used, and that's a great thing to see. Other than that, I don't have anything other than I will mention the same thing that Councilmember Tad did, Veterans Day. I don't really care about the Marine birthday. I can't bring myself to care about that. I'm from the Navy, and the Marines get places because of the Navy. So, and we're going to argue about that for the next 4 years. So, but the Veterans Day is important. If you know a veteran, there have been some veterans that are having issues lately, PTSD type issues, more so now than in the past. And we need to be watching out for those neighbors as well as all of our neighbors. People are having difficulties and we need to be aware of that. So looking at your next door neighbor, find out if they need anything, if they're going to be warm this winter, those kinds of things. So find out, just talk to your neighbors. It's easy. Happy birthday, Marines.
Hoorah.
All right, thank you, President. I'm going to pause for a minute. We did miss one citizen's comment, so I want to provide anybody an opportunity. Kelly,
Yep.
let me that person in.
Last name is Lakshmi, or the first name?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Shiva.
Okay. Yep. You should be in now. Do you want to go ahead and unmute? And you're here with the council? Yes. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lakshmi here. I have a question here. I'm staying in Woodlands Crossing community, which is in 20th Street, 106th Avenue. We don't have a sidewalk in the road, and we are facing very unsafe situation here, wherein bus stops near the street, and it's very unsafe. We are using bike lane to cross the road, and even some kids run across the road to take a sidewalk which is in our opposite community. So as the cars take around 35 miles per hour speed, it's very unsafe for us to walk in that street. So could you please help us with the sidewalk built there?
Thank you. And it is something she sent an email to us earlier. I've got that shot over to Erin and taking a look at it. Where she's talking about is on 20th Street Southeast. If you go east, up 20th Street Southeast from Tom Thumb, that little section from 106 down to South Lake Stevens Road.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate your comments. Is there someone else?
No, well, a hand just went up, so it's up to you.
Okay, let's,
This is
and who is it?
gonna be Danielle C.
Danielle, can you hear us?
She's just coming over.
Danielle,
Hello.
Danielle, go ahead. You have the floor. 3 minutes.
Hi there. Thanks so much. I am joining with my fellow Woodland Crossing neighbor. And just to reiterate, there's quite a few families that are having to cross 20 because we don't feel comfortable walking down the bike lane. And I'm just curious how the city council, or like what would be the next steps in voicing this concern? Like, where does it go from here and how can we follow up? I know some community members have reached out to the mayor's office, which was great. But just curious, how do we follow up on this and just, you know, keep an eye on the conversation to make sure that we are, you know, it's being considered, I guess.
You bet. Hey, Danielle, appreciate your comments. We usually don't answer questions, but in this case, I'll let you know that just keep talking to me about it because I have my staff taking a look at the situation and what we can do there.
Okay, awesome. I know there's a lot of families that cross that spot there. I personally cross that street almost every day with my kiddos, and it creates so much anxiety for us, but we don't feel comfortable walking down the bike lane. So we'll definitely continue to communicate about that.
Yeah, please do. Thank you, Danielle.
Thanks.
All right, perfect. So anybody else?
Nope.
Okay, so I'll go ahead with some mayor's business. Have just so much going on, wrapping up the budget that you're seeing tonight. And then last week, City Administrator Brazel and I had the opportunity to take a tour of the waste management facility down in Woodinville. Would highly recommend that tour. It's fascinating. Physics and stuff to get your recycle separated. It's pretty cool, actually. So I would highly recommend it. I would actually really like to get a bus of citizens to go down and take a look at it. Just take that opportunity to educate people on why we do certain things in our recycle and the downstream impacts of it. This last week, the staff and I started in on the accreditation process and planning, started to identify some kickoff milestones that need to be accomplished, as well as some shaping efforts on that accreditation. And so with that, as part of our budget that we're looking at, is getting planned and going to be kicked off here as we get going into this next year. We also took a preliminary look at the results of the Urban 3 study. It's actually pretty interesting. It's a lot to take in and try to digest and figure out what's your usable information out of it. But it's something we did an initial look at today, and they're going to go back and do some refinements as well. And then we're looking at a November 30th workshop to be able to take a look at that. So with that, are there any department updates? Anybody have anything? See east-west on the head shakes. So we will move to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to pass the consent agenda. Is there any discussion of any of the items, dogs, cats, at all? None?
Can I request that we move the dog and cat licensing item to discussion?
Sure. So if I get an amendment to the original motion.
I move that we amend the original consent agenda to carry that conversation forward.
Okay. In a second.
Second.
Okay, so I have an amendment. Let's go ahead and end discussion on the amendment. Okay, the amendment is to move the dog and cat licensing to a discussion item. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, and so that amendment passes. And any further discussion on the original amendment of this consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so with that, let's go into discussion items and dog and cat licensing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful conversation with fellow council member and Mayor Gailey prior to the meeting. And I guess, and I don't know that we need to make a decision tonight, but I would love to visit the need for dog and cat licensing and talk about whether or not we're just continuing this ordinance and updating it because it's what we've always done, or to hear from city staff if there really is a need to have dog and cat licenses in our city, what they're used for and how that is enforced. So that's the reason for wanting to pull it out of consent.
So the chief is on right now and is unmuted if you want to.
Is the chief prepared to talk that?
Yeah, I could talk about it a little bit, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
So yes, it is important for us to be able to track the animals in our city and return them to when they get lost. We do have a lot of animals that get loose. We do have microchipping available that we require now, which helps us out, but it is great to know what animals we have in our city and be able to process that when it comes about. To change this, we are changing this from the city. Used to have it at the clerk's office. Now we have it in our law enforcement system too. So our officers, when they come across a pet, can try to find the owner and return the animal to them.
Thank you, Chief Aziz. I appreciate the information. Do you have any sense of how often the license information is what's used to match animals to their owners versus the microchip that might be present?
You know, I don't have that exact information. That's kind of hard to keep track of because of the calls we have in there. So it's kind of a hit and miss for us. We have right now a spreadsheet that we're tracking lost animals for us. We could cross-reference it a little bit, but it has a lot of data. There was quite a few people in our licensing that wasn't kept up to date. Now we have a system to do that.
Thank you.
Is there other concern? One thing I noted in there is that we're decreasing the threshold from 6 animals to 3 per household. Is that?
No, that was a thing where we're doing is the age of the dog. That has to deal with the age. The staff report forgot to have the word age in it. So it's moving it so it's consistent across the ordinance. It used to say 6 month old, and now it says 3 months old to make it consistent with all the other ordinances. So they'll be able to have 3 dogs and or 3 cats.
Thank you. No, I think my main concern was wanting some, I guess, some assurance that it wasn't just something we were doing by rote, that there was actually a need for the information and a need to keep the ordinance. If we're just updating ordinances just because, then I think it deserves to be looked at. But it sounds like, thank you, Chief. It sounds like that information is something that helps you do the work you need to do. So I appreciate the information.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, any further discussion on that? We want to do a motion to pass that?
Move to pass the dog and cat license as amended.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to pass the dog and cat licensing. All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good discussion. So let's move forward to a public hearing. And our first public hearing tonight is going to be ordinance 1124 permissible use code amendment. LUA 2021-0136. And that's David.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Please let me know if you're not able to hear me, but David Levitan, Planning Manager. So this is a continued public hearing from October 12th. It is a type 6 land use code amendment that we're proposing to update our permissible uses chapter, which is chapter 1440. of the Lake Stevens Municipal Code, as well as some associated amendments. Kelly, you can go ahead on to the next slide.
I'm sure trying here. Okay.
So just a little bit about that hearing. Staff provided an overview of the proposed amendments. This was about a year-long process. We had 7 work sessions with the Planning Commission, as well as 3 updates in work sessions with the City Council. At both the September 15th Planning Commission public hearing, as well as the October 12th Council public hearing, we did not receive any comments from the public. Council members asked a number of questions following our presentation that required some additional research and staff analysis. So it was recommended that the public hearing be continued to a date certain, which is today, November 9th, 2021. And so I'm going to provide just a kind of an overview of what the primary focus was at that meeting. Because we continued the public hearing, council members are welcome to comment on other sections of the proposed code amendment. But this is really what the focus of the staff report was and what we did our additional analysis and research on. There was a comment from council member Jorstad about we had added in a definition for Oxford houses and similar uses. The intent of that was to address community recovery facilities. And the comment on that was that we should look at kind of flipping that definition so that it focuses on a more general term, which we have now added as recovery housing, and including Oxford housing and similar uses as examples. So I would welcome any comments on that. Following the presentation, I'm happy to respond to any comments specifically on that, or if there's additional language or revisions that council members would like to see, staff is happy to make those and incorporate those into the ordinance. Next slide. And really what the majority of the conversation was on October 12th was related to storage facilities. There had been a number of changes proposed to our supplementary use regulations related to storage facilities, which are section 14.44.044 of the municipal code. Staff is proposing to remove one of the recommended additions that had been presented on October 12th was the addition of requiring applicants to do an economic feasibility analysis as part of their land use application to demonstrate why other types of uses wouldn't be feasible in locations where storage facilities are permitted, and also to demonstrate how the city could still meet its long-term employment targets and its kind of employment needs. There were concerns from a number of council members that would be really subjective, really difficult to implement. And staff looked at it again and looked at other codes throughout the region and agreed with that. And so we proposed removing that. And in place of that, we've added some more kind of discrete, clear and objective standards related to storage facilities that have been incorporated into an amended ordinance 1124. Those include a new maximum building size of 40,000 square feet, a requirement that storage facilities be multi-story buildings as opposed to single-story buildings, and that the minimum lot size for storage facility uses be 2 acres. We also provided some additional clarification on the 25% lot area coverage. There was some questions about how that was implemented, so we tried to address that in a revised section 14.44.044. So Kelly, if I can have the next slide. So what we are recommending tonight, in specifically related to these 2 sections, which we've revised, we would ask for City Council to discuss and identify any other revisions, both to these sections and any other sections of the proposed code amendment that you'd like to see. We have incorporated the updated language into a revised ordinance 1124, which is included in your packet, and which staff is recommending that you consider adoption of tonight. Specific to the storage facilities language, staff has also identified a couple of options that the council can take if they think that there either needs to be more discussion as part of this specific code amendment, or if they think that it should be continued or removed from that the storage facility use changes be removed from this code amendment and moved maybe into the 2022 work program so that we can take a more comprehensive look at potential changes. So I've identified some options up there on the screen. Those include adopting the language in the revised ordinance 1124 with a kind of the standard effective date, potentially adopting ordinance 1124 as proposed, but with a delayed effective date. You know, we do have a couple of applications that have been through the pre-application stage or preliminary discussion stage that have anticipated that the current standards would be in place when their land use application move forward. So there would be the opportunity to delay that effective date to allow for those applicants to move forward and to vest to the existing standards. The council can discuss any sorts of refinements that need to be made to the language, either with the standard or the delayed effective date. And then the kind of final option would be to remove any changes to basically keep as is section 1444.044 and to wait and make any changes to that as part of a standalone code amendment, potentially as part of the 2022 long range work program. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
You ready for questions? Thank you, David. Just a quick question, and I probably have some other questions here after other council members speak, but regarding this Oxford House, and I appreciate you bringing up for the expansion of and not defining that little thing, but noted on here, it would be limited to 16 residents. So
Yeah.
Is there a guideline somewhere that says a 2-bedroom house couldn't inhabit 16 people, or does it need to be 8 bedrooms or something, some limitation? I can just envision in my head a house on a cul-de-sac that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with 16 people in it. I think we would probably have a few people at the podium speaking to us about that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with as far as the bedroom requirement. We did reach out. I didn't mention that in the presentation, reached out to our building department and to the fire marshal with the fire district. And he noted just that general provision of the 16 people, which would kind of push them into a different occupancy type and a different use classification. And so that was really what was involved there. I think in general, Oxford houses and other uses, I mean, they're generally not going to propose having 16 people. I've seen Oxford houses in a number of different jurisdictions. They're generally more in like the 8 to 10 to 12 person at a maximum, just because they do not want to have more than 2 people in a room. So I would probably have to consult with our city attorney and potentially with others if there were concerns that there were an opportunity to kind of shoehorn too many people into a small structure.
I guess that kind of begs the question, do we have limitations on existing single-family residences that, 4-bedroom, 2,100 square foot house, 3-bedroom, could 18 or 25 people live in there?
On the planning side of things, we do not. I mean, within the zoning code, within Title 14, there are no limits. There's the definition of family in 1408-010 that specifically excludes the, there is currently a maximum on 6 unrelated individuals, but there isn't a maximum on related individuals. So if you had a couple that had 14 or 16 children, there wouldn't be, anything that would preclude them from living there. There is language in there within that definition of family about 6 unrelated individuals being the maximum, but the language there is federal and state fair housing regulation that specifically exempts uses such as Oxford housing from those zoning regulations related to maximum household size.
That would go against familial status. Pardon? That would go against the familial status. A family can put as many people as they would like to in a home. It's familial status, it's protected class.
I get that, but the recovery house is unrelated individuals.
That's what I'm saying. So when you talk about related, that familiar status, unrelated is where you're going with it, which I agree, but no, you can't discriminate on that. But unrelated, I'm all for putting restrictions on that.
Yeah, I would, as you advised, I think some input from the city attorney would be advisable on that. It just seems like that could just, I don't know, Angie, what your experience is with these types of situations. I would agree, they're probably more effective when they're smaller. However, you know, the impacts on a neighborhood could be immense if we didn't have a prudent operator.
Certainly, I can speak a bit to this. Just a couple things to say. So first of all, operators who are running recovery homes that are effective are very, very reluctant to overcrowd a house because it doesn't meet the need of the folks who are living there. So you will very rarely find a home that's overcrowded. If there's a large primary bedroom that can fit 3 twin beds, there might be 3 people to a room, but typically there's 1 or 2 people to a bedroom. So of course it depends on the housing size. If it's a 5-bedroom home with a large primary suite, you might see, you know, a larger number of folks there. But to run an effective recovery home, it's really important to provide space for folks to be able to focus on their recovery. When homes are overcrowded, that's not a place where people want to live. It's also not a place where agencies want to house folks. So many agencies will seek out homes where privacy exists. And so even though a house may advertise that they have 14 beds or 16 beds, supportive services will shy away from filling those beds because they realize that it's not appropriate. It's not helpful often. I guess I also just want to put out there, and maybe this is obvious, so my apologies. If we look at limiting the number of beds that are available to this population, we are contributing to the homelessness in our county. These beds are beds of last resort for individuals who are coming out of treatment and who are regaining their lives, who are working towards getting employed, who are working towards getting their life back. And there is nothing that's affordable, that's even comparable to a bed in a recovery home in terms of affordability. And so I just want us to be very cautious when we're talking about limits. And I do look forward to hearing feedback from our city attorney that we aren't inadvertently limiting the only opportunity that these individuals have to get back on their feet and then move forward. And I understand we need to balance that need with our communities and the neighbors, and absolutely want to make sure that we're not creating a burden on our community as well. But I think we need to be very mindful of that balance.
Any other questions for staff?
Do we have I'm sorry, do we have
I raised my hand.
do we have an opportunity if there's any public testimony?
Well, I'm still on questions for the staff. So does anyone have anything for David?
So I guess I want to, acknowledge Councilmember Store's leadership in their comments. I've personally been in homes like this with a master suite with 4 bunk beds in them. And, a larger hall with, 20 plus people in there. And I can tell you that the neighbors aren't happy with that. It makes it very difficult. So I just want to be mindful while respecting the value of making sure we have maximum beds, but also wanting to maintain the integrity of these neighborhoods that where these homes may end up, and the resulting enforcement issues that will result from overpopulating. And I know there's at least one large government organization that is okay with putting as many people as they can into these places. And so I just think we need to be very judicious as we strike that delicate balance.
Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I just, while I don't have all the experience that Councilwoman Jorstad does, I do have a lot of experience with Cocoon House. And I would say we need to remember these are human beings. These are people that need us to support them. We need to find a way, and maybe not a jam-packed building. I understand that. And I also have been exposed to group homes for kids with special needs. So I understand this. But at the same time, I want us to be humane and just think about, maybe put yourself in the place of the neighbor. Okay, I get that. But at the same time, I think we need to be as humane as we can when we make our decisions.
Okay, are there any other questions for staff? Staff. Okay, no other questions for staff. So let's go ahead and open this up for public comments then. This is just for public comments on just this topic, which is Ordinance 1124, permissible use code amendment. Are there anybody here? No? Anybody online? No hands up online? We have one, Patrick.
Good evening, council members, members of the public, city staff. My name is Patrick McCourt. I'm the president of Landfill Group, Inc. The address is 10515 20th Street Southeast, Suite 202, Lake Stevens. I'm here representing Ray Moore, the owner of a property located at the intersection of State Route 92 and Grade Road. Mr. Levitan made reference earlier this evening to a couple of folks that have either had preliminary discussions or pre-application meetings with the city of Lake Stevens regarding storage. Mr. Moore engaged our firm several months ago to assist him in building a mini storage on property that he has owned for over 2 decades at that intersection. We presented a draft site plan along with other information related to the proposed mini storage. Mini storage is not new to Mr. Moore. He has owned several thousand mini storage units in 10+ facilities in Washington and Nevada over the years. At 88 years old, this is his last dream project, is to construct this project to serve the community of Lake Stevens. Mr. Moore did go through the expense of doing a market study to determine the viability of another mini storage facility in Lake Stevens. A copy of that was submitted to the city. That property was ranked a B+ and indicated that there is a shortage of mini storage units in the Lake Stevens area. I have to go back to the late 80s, 1989, when growth management was first discussed at the legislative level and ultimately adopted in 1991. In the case of Lake Stevens, it was assigned a population that has been amended today to somewhere in the range of 53,000 citizens in this city. Lake Stevens has geographic features on the west, which includes Sunnyside Boulevard and the Snohomish River. It has an adjoining jurisdiction to the south of Snohomish. On the east, it is restricted by the Pilchuck River as far as growth in that direction, and on the north, Highway 92. Consequently, the city has gone through several comprehensive plan and zoning amendments to densify the community. When I say densify, land that at one time had 12,500 square foot single-family lots or 9,600 square foot single-family lots has continued to be upzoned to allow for greater densities. Some lots as small as 36,000 square feet. That's purely on the single-family side, never mind townhomes or multifamily. Consequently, as the homes have gotten smaller and the homeowners associations have created rules and regulations that prevent boats and RV vehicles from being stored in their yards, they've had to find boat and RV storage. And there's currently a boat and RV storage that has just recently been completed, the final phase on Hartford Road. Some of you may have seen it and know it as Toy Garage. The final certificate of occupancy was issued on September 30th for the final project completion. That project is 100% occupied today. The market study that was done reflects that the mini storage facilities in the Lake Stevens area are at or near 100% occupied today. Mr. Moore would like to get on with his project and has been awaiting the adoption of whatever the code amendment may look like, and had prepared a response to the version that came to the council at the last session. And there's yet another version that eliminated the need for the market study, eliminated the retail component requirement. So Mr. Moore would like to see the ordinance adopted this evening and has some suggested changes. I would like to approach the council, if I may, and hand out these changes.
Good job.
There are 8 copies here. I'm going to get 8 for me. I'll give them to Mr. Rothstein.
Thank you.
I don't believe there's any secret to anyone in this room that the amount of commercial, industrial, or residential land remaining in city of Lake Stevens is very minimal. Part of what's driving the city council and staff's direction with respect to the use of the property is to ensure employment above job entry level jobs. This particular piece of property, and I do have one more handout, I'm sorry. This particular piece of property is approximately 5 acres in size. However, due to wetlands and buffers, the remainder of property is approximately 1 acre that can be built upon. The way the code is currently proposed, it would be impossible for Mr. Moore to proceed with his lifelong dream of building a mini storage facility on this location. If you look at the small print under the site data, the buildable lot area is 50,557 square feet, which is approximately 10,000 square feet over an acre in size. Code's not clear when it says a parcel needs to be 2 acres, but we'll make the assumption that they're taking into consideration the entire parcel. The entire parcel being 5 acres, this property would meet that requirement. But that doesn't necessarily apply to others that may own property in the city that could accommodate a mini storage as the city continues to densify with multifamily units or townhomes where storage is a needed facility. The code is proposed this evening states that the storage facility shall have a footprint shall not exceed 40,000 square feet. We'll enter the matter of economics and how does someone that goes through the expense of building the infrastructure, frontage improvements, relocation of power lines, installation of sewer, and in the case of Mr. Moore, the extension of approximately 1,500 linear feet of median ductile water from the current Lake Stevens Post Office west, crossing the creek, and the city still is holding some $80,000 in escrow that the post office developer posted to allow for that crossing to occur underneath the creek. So to limit the size of the facility to 40,000 square feet, I'm not certain why. I don't think there should be any limitation to the amount of square footage that one should be able to build on property that they've paid taxes on for over 2 decades. They're already encumbered by wetlands and buffers. So to restrict Mr. Moore from being able to do that vis-a-vis the proposed language Just doesn't seem right. Absolutely understand that the storage facilities are only permitted within multi-story structures. The way multi-story design has gone over the past several years with inside offloading docks, elevators to make it easy on us older people's backs, makes only sense that it be a multi-story facility. The minimum lot size was at 2 acres. And as I thought about it, I reduced that to 1 acre this evening while sitting here because there are not very many 2-acre parcels of property with a particular zone that would allow many storages left in the city of Lake Stevens. In fact, I can only think of rehabilitation or replacement of properties along Hartford Road. There is some currently local business zone property at the southeast corner of the Lake Stevens UGA. Doesn't seem appropriate for that parcel because of its topography to be developed, and that property is approximately 10 acres. So why the limitation to 2 acres? I'm not certain, but it seems if someone owns an acre of property and they wanted to build a mini storage and the zoning was proper, they should be allowed to do that with a 25,000 square foot footprint that was proposed on 43,000 square feet or 86,000 square feet, if you double up the acreage. Way more than ample parking because it's a mini storage. It's a drop off and pickup location. So it seems that a 1 acre minimum size is appropriate.
Hey, Mr. McCord, I know I didn't put a time frame on you, but you could hit your final comments for me.
Limiting the coverage to 25%, it just doesn't seem that there's justification or reason for that when it's a drop-off pickup facility. So Mr. Moore does support the passage of the ordinance as presented with the proposed changes that I've handed out to you this evening. Do you have any questions? I'll only add that the other second document I submitted does not include elevations, but does include the site plan and the footprints. And I'll note that Mr. Moore did include some retail in that building along with an office, which was language contained in the ordinance you folks looked at in October.
Okay. Any other public comments on the subject? Anybody in the panel? No. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and close public comments for this portion of the hearing. David, do you have any further comments?
No, I mean, I'm looking through this now. If I could take a little bit more time, and I would welcome if Russ had any comments as well. Yeah, if I could digest this a little bit more while the council deliberates and discusses, and if they seek any additional clarification from staff, could provide that.
Russ is ready to go.
Russ has some comments. Okay, go ahead, Russ.
Okay, this is Director Wright, for those of you who can't see me. So this code amendment, as it's been proposed, was really comprehensive, trying to streamline and simplify our use code. So I want to not lose sight of that. One of the big conversations we've also had over the last year is the city's buildable lands, its diminishing returns, as well as new growth targets that the city already knows going into 2035 as it was at a deficit for its job growth. And now moving out to 2044, that growth deficit is magnified. So we have proposed some revisions to the storage unit code to try and harmonize and recognize that we do have this deficit of jobs. That's why we came back to the council after your last meeting. I had spoken to a couple of council members who suggested maybe we look at some more objective standards, maybe look at what the average size of storage facilities are throughout the region. So that was some of the data that was brought to the council tonight. I would recommend, if council would like us to consider some of the proposed language that was submitted tonight, that you take that portion of the code amendment out, as we haven't had a chance to address that, and that was submitted at the dais rather than ahead of time to give us a chance to analyze it. But I would suggest that the rest of the code has some very good language that none of you have disputed. So if it's just coming down to the storage unit issue, you can bifurcate that and we can come back to that and address that as a separate ordinance. And I'm happy to take any questions from the council.
Questions for us?
So Russ, I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. So if we have some specific concerns with the storage facility, your recommendation is that the language be stricken, but that the remaining language, such as in section D, design standards and things be kept in place. Like A, B, and D look like those are, no one's disputing any of that, but some of the special restrictions, I guess, is what's under consideration tonight. Is
I
that
guess
correct?
I'm suggesting we wouldn't modify any of the language as it sits today for storage units, and that we would come back as a more comprehensive review of the entire storage unit chapter.
Okay, so if I got this straight, what you're saying, Director Wright, is that we would approve the permissible use ordinance with the exception of 1444-044.
Correct.
I would suggest that we also have our city attorney review the what do you call it, the Oxford House or other similar uses sections as well. So that'd be 1408-010 combined with 1444-044.
How long would we be talking about to delay a developer in Lake Stevens? Once again, I mean, is this a month, 2 months?
I don't think it would delay it at all because it'd be back at the regular, what's already in there, right?
Yeah, we've given direction to this developer and we've not approved, but we've green lighted them through the pre-app process that they are compliant and can move forward. So at this point, the discretion of the building permit application is with the applicant. That was the other thing we had suggested, that we push the effective date of this out 45 to 60 days if council was satisfied with the amendments to allow the two potential applicants to get their vesting documents into the city. So.
Any other questions for staff?
Can I, Councilman Peter Sagan, can you clarify your request of the other section you would like reviewed prior to passing this ordinance
Well,
regarding?
we talked earlier about the number of residents and for unrelated individuals. And I don't think there was a clear answer to that. I thought I heard that advice from the city attorney would be sought as to if we could put limitations on that or not.
My understanding is that we cannot put limitations on the number of individuals, but that the 16 or higher number is a issue for fire code, that it would go against the current code regarding the fire marshal. So that would stand, but that there aren't limitations for this type of housing under the ADA. Is that?
Yeah,
That is my understanding under Supreme Court case law and with the Oxford Houses versus Oxford Homes versus the City of Edmonds, Washington, that if it's a recognized disability, that you cannot establish a maximum number of unrelated individuals and treat that differently than a definition of a family of related individuals by blood. But we can seek clarification on that, but that's generally the premise of that case law.
Does that answer your question?
It does, that there's already case law that states that we can't limit the population, but that if there are more than 16 individuals, that it would be an issue for the fire marshal.
I don't know, so that's what Mr. Leviton said. He said, based on his interpretation of the Supreme Court issue, I guess I would rather have the city attorney give me that advice, not to slight Mr. Leviton, but it would seem to me that as council member, you said, we need balance. And if there's something that we can do to achieve that balance, I would like to see that. There's nobody in this room that is not sympathetic to homeless and people that are rehabilitating. So respect to the existing neighborhoods is one that that's our job, is to balance this out. And so I would like to have some definitive direction as to how to address this. I don't think we have any proposals for Oxford houses in the city right now. So if we got to wait a couple of weeks, I don't think we've got a huge issue here, but I would like to see some clarity on that, especially if I'm going to be voting on this issue.
Yeah. Councilmember Dorstad, I apologize for if you already answered this question. So Oxford House versus a clean, sober house versus, I know there's different distinctions, different titles that are sometimes used, I guess maybe inappropriately. So is a clean, differentiate between like a clean, sober house and Oxford House and other types of housing, for example, the Department of Corrections releases people to, is there a meaningful distinction between those? Or are those all considered to be under the umbrella of an Oxford House?
They are all considered to be under the umbrella of a recovery house.
Okay.
There are different types of houses that operate under different rules. And I'm not an expert. I could certainly speak to, how an Oxford house differs, but I think the language that Mr. Leviton has included in this ordinance really adequately describes that recovery house umbrella.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion?
Can I just ask staff why, I know you have some verbiage above the items 1, 2, and 3 that put the limitations on things, but I'm just wondering why we're looking at a minimum of 2 acres and why a maximum building site of 40,000 square feet. It would seem to me that the site is going to dictate the size of the building. And so I'm just wondering as to the thought process, I guess. And then also, I'm still not understanding the 25% coverage limit, especially when it's in regards to it applies to property that the applicant may or may not control because it's within the local business district.
Yeah, so as far as the new standards that we had proposed specifically related to the 40,000 square feet and then the minimum lot size, it was, as I think Russ kind of noted, it was a balancing act of maintaining property rights versus acknowledging our needs to provide higher employment density in the future to meet our growth targets, given that there is a projected deficit that's expected to expand in the coming decades. So we did some research. We looked at kind of some recent projects, including one in the city, through others in kind of a more urban environment, similar, maybe more suburban environment, similar to Lake Stevens, to see kind of what the average size was. And kind of, we looked at that and what the range of that was, and then proposed a maximum size of the facility just to, in recognition of the need to potentially preserve more of our employment land. If there's a desire not to have a cap, that there's a belief that the site size should dictate the maximum size of the structure, that's obviously within the purview of the council to make that determination. Similar to the minimum lot size, if you think that 2 acres is is too small. But as Russ noted, if we are going to get into that and start amending those, if there are significant deviations and there's still some questions related to the language within 1444-044, it might be better to pull that from the amendment to do a more thorough analysis of that, to really get into the market research and analysis of that, and do that as a standalone amendment in 2022. That wouldn't preclude existing property owners that have gone through the pre-application process. They would be subject to the existing code language, which they've been planning their project under. And so those are a couple of the options. As far as the locally zoned area, that's basically trying to establish, trying to preclude or prevent an area just becoming dominated by storage facilities. If you look up and down the industrial area, there are a number in that area already. So it's trying to establish that, you know, when you look at the local industrial zoning district or the general industrial zoning district or the local business zoning district, that no more than 25% of that collectively zoned district, irrespective, regardless of property ownership, that you can't have storage facilities basically on every parcel, that it's limited in size when you look at the district as a whole. And that's in recognition of the need to meet our employment targets as well. So, you know, it sounds like there's still a number of questions about this specific section, which may support, you know, pulling that from this specific amendment and looking at that as a standalone amendment.
Can I ask what the thought behind the retail component? Because that would, if you have a retail component as part of a storage facility, doesn't that require more parking? And wouldn't that change the dynamic of a storage facility?
So as far as the retail component, I don't know if that's alluding to the existing language or.
Right, I was just curious what the thought process was behind it. I just wanted to know why a retail component is part of it.
Yeah, and I can't really speak to, I mean, I wasn't here when that language was written. So probably have to do some additional research on the legislative history of that, kind of what the thought process was on that.
The thought process behind that was very much what we're talking about when that was presented to council, I guess about five years ago, that we recognized the need for storage facilities, but also wanted more active uses, especially as it related to these neighborhood commercial zones, which the comprehensive plan has designated as these neighborhood commercial centers. So again, it was trying to find a balance between allowing this storage facility, but also taking care of the small retail needs of adjacent neighborhoods. So it never said that the retail component had to be in a storage facility. It was just looking at a greater zone like we've done with, say, marijuana, or how we've treated the sub areas that we've set caps on different development types within that district. It's that same model that within the proportion, within this entire zone, this contiguous area, that we wanted to make sure there was diversity of retail and employment type facilities, commercial facilities, so not dominated by any one industry.
The reason I bring it up is because if you would allow retail, why would you not think to add incubator space, which like Stevens is significantly in need of? So by allowing someone to have incubator space inside of a facility like this would seem like more of an approach rather than retail.
Can you define incubator space?
It would be someone who like maybe is worked out of a home-based business and then have outgrown that, and maybe they have like a plumbing company they've been operating out of home, but then have since outgrown. So then they need a spot for storage, but then also a component where someone could walk in and pay in.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's not a prohibited use at all. That's actually a very complementary use. It would be not just retail, but any other type of commercial development that could be complementary, or again, diverse commercial uses within any particular zone.
What other questions or deliberations we have?
Well, I need some more research into this 1444. 044. I'm not convinced on any of this, to tell you the truth. I've got questions about a lot of it. The 25% coverage of all the available in that zone. I mean, if we look at this specific one, how much is available in that particular, how many other businesses do we get in? Can't, because that's one parcel. So the 25% of that doesn't even compute. So, I mean, I can see if you're looking at the entire Hartford area, that 25% is maybe a viable coverage of the entire Hartford area. So only 25% of the entire Hartford area could be used for mini storage. Okay, maybe. I'm not convinced of that, but maybe. I understand the proponents' change of 1 acre from the 2 acres. I understand that, and I think I could support that. The 30,000 to the 40,000, I'm not sure. I'm a little confused on that one. I need a little bit more time on that one. I really think that we ought to be taking the 1444-044 out this time and get the rest of the permissive use tables done. And then anything that we need to do on the 14.08 that has to do with the housing, we need to get that fixed one way or another. I kind of agree with Councilmember Peter saying that I'd like to have a little bit more definitive on how far we can, what the limits can be and what the limits can't be, to where we're not going to have a problem legally. And at the same time, we need to be preserving some of what's going on in the neighborhoods. I, for one, we can have a whole lot of those houses in our neighborhoods. It doesn't bother me a bit, as long as it's just not overused in that one building. So we need that housing. It needs to be available. I understand that. I think we ought to take that section in 1444-044 out of tonight and move on.
Okay, so let me do this. Let me close the public hearing and then ask the council for an action.
Before you do.
Okay.
Just one alternative consideration. There's a lot of focus on how many people can go into a particular recovery center. And what I heard from the testimony is that there generally isn't overcrowding. And when there is, it's an issue with the operator. So a medium to meet everyone's needs, instead of focusing on how many people go in the house, perhaps there is value in researching the methodology, processing, and licensure of the operators. And perhaps there's an opportunity there to reach a happy medium that will meet everyone's needs.
There is no licensure currently required, and there is no oversight body. In 2024, there is a state requirement that there be a certification process that recovery houses go through, but until then, that currently doesn't exist.
So at present, someone could just purchase a home, turn into a recovery center and put 16 people in.
Absolutely. Mhm. And that's it's a statewide situation.
You say there's legislation in 2024 about that?
There's legislation now that will require recovery homes to be certified through a national process. Many homes are in the process of that certification process. In order to receive local, state, and federal funding to pay for the rental assistance that folks are receiving.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so how about if I now close the public hearing? And look for an action from the council. You can approve what we have going on, you can deny it, you can continue it, you can take sections out.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1124 minus section 1444-044 regarding the storage facilities, as well as the definitions section regarding the resident capacity, I guess, of recovery housing, with both those two issues to be reviewed, and hopefully it's not too late at the time.
Okay, so I have a motion. I'll second that. I have a second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
We have one opposed. Motion passes. All right, let's move on to public hearing ordinance 1127, public tax levy for 2022. Barb.
Okay, thank you, Council. This is public hearing number 1. This includes our property tax public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and get started in here. This is just an agenda, our property tax public hearing. Thank you, Troy. We'll go over property tax limitations, which we've talked about previously, assessed values, limit factors, go over the property tax levy for 2022, the property tax levy breakdown by taxing district, and then the tax levy rate comparison for 2021 to 2022, and examples of these. Looking at our property tax limitations, most of you have seen this slide previously. One of the first limitations we have is statutory dollar rate. For cities, it's $3.60 per 1,000 of assessed value. Since we are annexed into a fire district and a library district, our city's portion is maximum of $1.60. The levy limit, this is the 101% or implicit price deflator. This is the increase over the prior year levy. So that's the 1% you hear about increase. There's also some other things like highest lawful levy and statutory amounts if you come up to the $1.60. The factors that change from year to year include our assessed values in 2020. For 2022, the increased value in Lake Stevens was approximately 14.6% overall. And then the implicit price deflator was 3.860%. This only matters if it's above 1% or below 1%. If it's below 1%, in order to increase your levy by that 1%, you also have to do an ordinance of substantial need. Our limit factor for 2022 is 101%. So it is the 1% increase. This is a basic calculation of our property tax levy. This shows you the 1% levy increase, our highest lawful levy for 2021, and then the 1% of that, which is the revenue increase over 2021, which shows $52,700. You utilize that information first. That is that 1% increase, then add new construction and annexation, which is approximately $218,000 for 2021 for the 2022 tax year. And then also adding state assessed and refunds, bringing you to the revenue levy, which is 5.584 with a levy rate of 0.9195. So the rate in 2021 was 0.9951, and then the rate for 2022 is estimated to be 0.9195 per 1,000, so about 92 cents. There is, as I mentioned, the 1% increase over prior year. There's additional increase because of the new construction and annexation, and that's approximately 6% overall. So over prior year, approximately 6% increase. As I mentioned, the new construction and annexation, new construction is approximately $209,000 increased assessed value. And then annexation, it does not include the major annexation from 2022, only a smaller one. So it's about $8,800 for 2022. And there we do still have the allocation from 72% into the general fund and 28% into the street fund. So this looks at the property tax levy breakdown. The first box on the upper left-hand corner that shows you by taxing district. As you can see, the city of Lake Stevens, it rounds it to $1. As I said, it was 0.9951 per thousand. So of the total $10.18 in that tax collection, tax calculation area, our portion is $1. I will mention that we actually have six TCAs, tax calculation, tax code areas in Lake Stevens now. 4 include the Lake Stevens School District and 2 include Snohomish School District. So there are a few different total rates. Our portion will always be the same, the 0.99 or 0.9195, or in 2021, 0.9951. But the totals are different. So those change depending on what the other taxing districts are charging those tax code areas. So just a kind of a side caveat, that's kind of newer with our newer annexations. So looking at that, the 2021 example for the city portion, looking at a house, assuming a $500,000 assessed value. The graph up in the right corner shows you what that would be. The estimated tax for that is $5,589. Our portion is $497 from that household. Then looking at a 2022 example, based on the 14.6% increase and the new levy rate, I did round this to a 15% increase versus 14.6 just for simplicity. You're looking at a home value of $517,000. At that new rate, you're looking at a $31 increase over 2021 for the city portion. So it's about $6.24 for each $100,000 of assessed value. I do have, this is just a couple other examples of ways to look at it. So the first 3 rows give you your 2021, if your home value was 100,000, 500, or a million. The next 3 rows include a 15% assessed value increase. And then the bottom are the differences that would be paid on those properties. And I will mention that that is if your house went up that full 14.6 or 15%. Not all homes will go up that much. Some will actually only, if you only go up, let's say 8%, you'll actually receive a decrease in your property tax, and others will pay a higher portion. So it's just how it goes based on the assessed values across the board. That is pretty much all I have for property tax. I did separate out the public hearings between property tax and budget this time. So I will allow council questions, comments, and a recommendation for the ordinance.
Did we have any questions for Barb just on this topic? Any questions? Not hearing any questions. I'm going to go and open up the floor for public comments on just this topic. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment on just this subject? Anybody raising their hand?
No. I know we did get a written comment that included something about property taxes. Yeah, we did, that Tom Matlock. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone got that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and close the public comments portion. Is there further comment by Barb?
No, sir.
No further comment. Any further questions of staff? Hearing none, is there any deliberation by the city council on this subject?
I'm just curious, do we have any banking ability, or have we?
No, we have only banked capacity one time, and that is actually when you hit that $1.60. And then if the calculation turned out to be $1.62, but you're capped at that $1.60, those kind of 2 cents get banked. And we only did that one time and it was quite a few years ago. And then the next year, the bank capacity just went back into the calculation. So we don't have any bank capacity at this
Okay.
time.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Can I get an action on this item?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 1127, authorizing collection of property tax levy for 2022 and setting the property tax levy.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. A second?
Second,
Okay, and I have a second. Motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So with that, we will go to the Barb again, 2022 public, or it's getting late. Preliminary budget.
Thank you, Council. Mayor. So looking at our first public hearing for our 2022 proposed budget. These are our 2022 budget priorities. I know you've seen these. These have not changed. This is very important this year, looking at the achieving the American Public Works Association accreditation, completing capital projects that are already in process, streamlining our citywide processes to increase our levels of service citywide, and then enhancing transportation program and funding. This does include sidewalks as well, and enhancing park and recreation program and funding. This first table is a breakdown of all of our funds citywide by type, so by fund type. The first section, you have your general fund funds. Those include your general operating fund, your reserve, permit funds, and your ARPA fund, which is a managerial fund of this general fund. Your expenditures here include your administration, police, planning, community development, and parks. Then you have your special revenue funds. Includes street fund, that's your major fund, and then a couple of other municipal arts and drug seizure funds. Debt service funds, that's all of our debt service funds other than the ones we pay out of stormwater, which is for our decant and Vector truck that we're still paying on. And then our capital project funds, those are the 300 funds. That's your REIT funds, your traffic and park mitigation, sidewalk funds. And then some of our like downtown capital project fund and our police department, when we built that, bought that and built that, that was also a separate capital fund. We also have our enterprise funds. Those are, that's stormwater mostly. Stormwater is now broken down into stormwater operating, stormwater capital, and the stormwater debt fund. All of those roll up into that enterprise fund. And then additionally, we do still have a sewer fund. It's mostly used for debt service. We have some debt out that they pay. We bill them for it, they pay us, we pay the bills. And so the majority of that is for the wastewater treatment plant. And then also our internal service funds, those are where we put our capital funds for vehicle replacement and some of our IT. And then our fiduciary funds, that's mostly just money that passes through us. So this is just an expanded view of that same information, just showing every fund. As I mentioned, the general fund does include the permit contingent and ARPA funds here. This is how the budget is actually passed. It's approved by fund level. So this is how the ordinance looks. This is your 2022 citywide revenue by type or source breakdown. As you can see, taxes are the largest portion, as at 38%. That includes property taxes, sales tax, real estate excise tax, and utility taxes. Those are the major sources. Next in the orange is intergovernmental, and that's our grants and our state shared funds. That includes your liquor excise tax, liquor board, criminal justice, some of those. The gray is your charges for services. That includes your developer type fees like zoning and subdivision fees, impact fees, traffic, park mitigation. and then also stormwater fees. And then the small yellow slice there is license and permits, and that is actually where the building permits are. So just wanted to point that one out. This is looking at our breakdown of tax revenues. As I mentioned, it's about 38% of our total citywide revenues. So property tax in the blue is about 31%, and that is broken down into general fund and street fund at that 72%, 28% breakdown. In the gray, we have sales tax at 34%. So it's actually slightly higher than our property tax. That's a newer occurrence for us in the last couple of years. That goes into our general fund and our general reserve fund as we put away money into general reserve from the construction sales tax for infrastructure, property purchases, that type of thing. Next, in the blue, light blue, you have the utility taxes. We do have those in the general fund and in the street fund. Garbage utility tax goes into the street fund. And then we have a couple smaller ones, gambling and leasehold, and then the real estate excise tax makes up about 17% of the taxes citywide, and that is used for capital projects. This is looking at our general fund revenues by type. Our total operating revenue is $15.4 million for 2022. Although 38% taxes make up 30% of revenues citywide, it actually makes up 77% of the general fund. This does show just the operating fund only, so it does not include the contingency reserve, which is the construction sales tax, permit revenues, or the ARPA grant, except for reimbursements that are for related costs. And that is in that interfund line item, which is about 5 down in the first table. Those are actually transfers into the general fund reimbursing for those positions that we're funding through ARPA and some of the permit ones. In the next graph in the donut, that breaks down our general fund taxes, which is 11,900,000. As you can see, the sales tax makes up 41% of general fund, property tax is 34%, and utility tax is 19%. And we are continuing to retain $300,000 of the construction sales tax, which we consider our base construction sales tax, in the general fund for operating purposes. Moving on to expenditures citywide by department. We're looking at public works. So this is all of our funds citywide. Public works makes up 31% of our expenditures. This includes the street fund, storm and surface water, our facilities, which comes out of the general government. And I do have parks under public works, but I do have it separated out. It's the green slice there in the pie. So I do have that separated out as we are considering making that its own department at this point. General government is in the light blue, that's 28%. And this does include debt and interfund loans and transfers, as well as our legal department and community and regular general government. So law enforcement makes up 20%, planning community development 8%, and then administration, which is your orange, is everything from your administrator, your city clerk, finance, HR, IT departments. There is a small one there. You can see legislative and executive makes up about 1% of the total. And then sewer, as I mentioned, we do still have a sewer department, and that is mainly for debt. So citywide expenditures by type. We have wages and benefits citywide are about 34% of the total $48 million budgeted. And then capital makes up about 25%. It shows a decrease from 21 to 22 in the budget. A number of projects will roll forward into 2022. And then looking at our general fund operating expenditures, and I compare these by department for 21 and 22, and then by type. As you can see, we are increasing our expenditures approximately 21% from 2020 21 estimated expenditures. So this is not the budgeted expenditures, this is the estimated ending versus our proposed 2022. We are adding 8.5 FTEs according to this budget. And some of these are partially funded by the ARPA and permit reimbursements. And then, as you can see, halfway down, we have law enforcement in 2021, estimated at 53% of total expenditures, 49% in 2022. That is still our largest department within general fund. And then planning and community development was 13%, now 14, an increase of 39%. This department is slightly off because it actually shows the park and rec director under that department versus under parks right now. So it will get moved once the budget is passed and we create that department. But for now, that's part of the increase there. And then 2021 estimated ending expenditures are coming in nearly $1.8 million less than budgeted 2021, and in part due to vacant positions and our kind of current inability to fill them. So we are coming in under budget on that. And then by type, as you can see, wages and benefits make up 68% of the general fund at 12.5 million. And then you have your services and supplies and other. Looking at our 2021 staffing recommendations, these have not changed. The one change on this table I have made, it actually changes, I guess there's two. One is the cost of living increase. I previously had in there the change from the base budget of 3% to the 5.67. In this, I show the full amount of what the 5.67 actually is versus splitting it between base budget and additional ask. And then the passport position / positions has been moved to a general government for now. We do have that sort of floating in the org chart. We weren't sure if we were going to have this in the police department or under City Hall. We have found out that we are unable to get the certification back at the police department. So moving forward with passports, we will need to find a new location for them, likely out of City Hall. So we're working on that. And so there are a total of 10 new FTEs, 8.5 in the general fund, 1 surface water management fund, and then 0.5 an FTE in street. And that's because the public works office assistant gets split between those departments and those funds. Some of these positions are budgeted to be hired midway through 2022, but as we've talked about, positions such as the police officers, if we're able to find qualified candidates, then we can hire those at the beginning of the year. This is just looking at our proposed 2022 org chart. As I mentioned, there are no changes in here. And I'm looking at our 2022 significant item requests. I have summarized it a bit more versus putting in all of the smaller items. So looking at public works equipment, approximately $1 million in replacement and or additional new equipment needs for the department. A few other things, we've got the move of the marine dock, that relocation, some things that need to be completed on the police building, some community development consulting services. As Councilmember Joris had mentioned, we have the affordable housing grant, so we do have expenditures to go towards that, as well as the shoreline management plan. Additionally, we have economic development services and then transportation element for 2024 comp plan, hiring a consultant to help with that as well. There are some items in 2021 that have not yet been purchased or fulfilled that will roll forward into 2022, and those roll forwards won't affect your overall balances. This is our forecasting graph. So this looks through general fund through 2027. I have updated our estimated endings through end of October. It did make a few changes to revenue expenditure line items, but they were just slight changes, so nothing significant. The green line is the general fund and contingency reserve. The blue line I've added is the permits, which that is restricted funding. But that does show that we have funding in order to continue funding those positions that are permit related. So this is based on our 2022 proposed budget with all of the requests that are general fund related that I've mentioned. This does include, so some of our assumptions, as I mentioned, so this assumes that we spend 100% of our budget, and generally we don't, whether that's because of vacant positions or projects not completed, and somewhat conservative revenues. This does include retail development sales tax receipts and revenue from the current year annexation beginning in 2023. So we won't see those revenues till 2023, but the forecast does include those, as those are known at this point. Looking at our street fund, revenues of 2.7 million. We're looking at property tax, motor vehicle fuel tax. Motor vehicle fuel tax is coming up from 2020, but obviously has decreased as less people are driving and commuting. That revenue is per capita based, and it's based on gallons sold. Looking at our expenditures, 2.9 million in expenditures. I showed the positions that are coming in here, public works administrative assistant. This budget does include continuing the pavement preservation program at the 400,000, annual striping program, 120,000. And then I mentioned the sidewalk construction program, which comes from the sidewalk fund. There are not any contributions budgeted in 2022 to come from the street fund into the sidewalk fund. That's the only fund that's currently funding the sidewalk fund, and we have not put any contributions in there in a couple of years. Looking at the expenditures by type, as you can see, wages and benefits, that makes up, that's the blue and the orange, makes up about 51%, which is 1.49 million. The assumption here does not include any new transportation benefit district funds. So this is just what revenues we have already. Surface water budget, revenues of 6.2 million. This does include interfund transfers of 1.9 million. So the revenues aren't as high as they seem here. We actually, when we do our reporting, we back out those interfund transfers between those three funds. Stormwater drainage fees are at just over 4 million. There is a 3% increase in 2022 based on our fees resolution that we did when we did our fee and when we did our survey with FCS. And this does include our stormwater fees coming from the school district as well. Expenditures, we're looking at 5.9 million. That includes those new positions, and then the annual phosphorus and milfoil treatments are currently budgeted. And then you have your capital and your debt service. The ending fund balance includes 1.78 million that's in the capital fund. So we don't keep very much money in the operating fund. We actually move it to the capital fund for future capital uses. And then I have, of course, our expenditures by type and wages and benefits, just like the street fund, 51% of the budget, and that's approximately $2.4 million. This is a look at our capital project, all of our capital projects going forward in the budget. I have not changed this except for one thing. There's a change to this Festival Street budget. We budgeted money to actually do this, $2,050,000 to do this in 2021. And this actually, the original sheet did not show it as a roll forward from 2021 to 2022. It showed it as new local funds needed, but it's actually a roll forward. That's going to come out of the REIT fund, as we have a grant for that that will reimburse the REIT fund. We also have some continuing projects that are not included in this list that don't need additional new money. Some small things like Caballero Park, a sign that are not included in this one. And then I just included a list of a few of our future projects that are kind of ongoing, not really on hold, but awaiting new grant funds, that type of thing. And I know the museum was mentioned earlier too. I know we're continuing to look for funding sources for that as well. So there's a few revenue decision points we have discussed. I wanted to bring those up one more time. Transportation Benefit District, again, this enhances our transportation funding. Registration tab fees would bring out approximately $550,000. Our new city engineer did a great presentation on our street sidewalk needs. Our pavement needs, went over the Transportation Benefit District information, so I don't want to go too deep into that. That is just the registration fees. If we did the tax, it would be approximately double that amount. Park levy lid lift. We went through that information. I know it was a lot of information to give regarding property tax increases. We could utilize that to enhance our park and recreation funding. And then utility taxes, we currently don't have any taxes imposed on the sewer or the stormwater utilities. The city stormwater utility, if we did at 6%, would be approximately $230,000. I did put in here that the deadline to impose this for 2022 is December 1st, and that's because Snohomish County does our billing. And so we have to get the information to them by the end of November. And so if we were going to do this, we would have to pass a new ordinance sometime during November in order to get that done. And then we mentioned the sewer utility. If we did that at 6%, we'd estimate that at about $900,000 additional to the city. That mostly concludes my presentation for you. Our next steps, obviously public comment, some discussion with council, potential approval of the first reading, and then the final public hearing, November 23rd, if we so choose.
Okay, so just a reminder, this is the first hearing. So with that, are there any council questions for staff?
Barb, thank you for the presentation. I guess my first question is related to the revenue decision points. Were any of those revenue options included in any of the projections presented?
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Barb? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the floor for public comments on just this subject, the preliminary budget. Is there any comments from the public on this? John?
Let me just check. Nope.
If there's anyone on the Zoom call, they need to raise their hand for. We did have, I think Mr. Matlock's would fall into this, his inner comments as well would fall into this category as well.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I'll go ahead and close public comments. Is there further comment by Barb?
No, thank you.
Okay, how about any additional comments or questions from the council? Have a non-verbal thumbs up from Councilman Dickinson. Okay, so with that, I'll go and won't close the public hearing, but we'll go and continue the public hearing and pick it back up on November
I think
20.
Mayor, we need you to close it, and then we'll have an additional one on the 23rd.
Correct. We need two public
We
hearings.
need two separate.
Okay, I'll do that. then.
Thank
I'll
you.
go ahead and close the public hearing. And we'll have another one on November 23rd. That's what you told me to do. Nice, they get big phones with it. Big money. All right, let's hit, I think we have one more topic to do.
Mayor, we do need approval of the first reading and the ordinance.
Okay, I need a council action to approve
I move to approve first reading of 2021 budget and ordinance number.
Second.
That's the wrong one. Never mind. Yeah. Did I
Second.
say 2022?
2022.
Since 2021 here. For the first reading of 2022 budget and ordinance number 1128.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, let's go to the discussion item 2021 conference plan docket review.
And Russ is gonna take us.
Russ, you are up.
All right, good evening again, council. I will keep this fairly brief for you tonight. So I just wanted to let you all take a quick look at the 2021 comprehensive plan docket. Pretty light docket this year. You'll recall that you approved the docket back in February. It's been in front of the Planning Commission and portions of it in the Park Board. And so this is your opportunity to take a quick look at it. Again, not a lot of big changes, a lot of house cleaning items throughout, some changes in the land use element, again, just to take out some old out-of-date information, show the annexation and some updated maps, updated projects in the Parks chapter, and updated some service elements in the service chapter, including some new level of surface language that our police department requested. And then in chapter 9, the capital facilities plan that brings forward up-to-date tables for roads, street facilities, and park projects. So we've gone through the process. The Planning Commission has recommended approval, and council will have the full docket in front of them for action in December at a public hearing to meet the 60-day requirement from Department of Commerce. And happy to answer any questions from the council tonight.
Do you have any questions from the council? All right, I'm not hearing any on this item. Thank you, Russ. Appreciate your work.
All right, thank you.
And with that, we've come to the finality of tonight's evening.
Move to adjourn.
Second? Second. Apparently no one wanted to hear me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Adjourn.
I feel wrong not getting that to Marcus. You said it first.